Hello, welcome back for another week of the Academy of Shem and Aver. I am Rabbi David Katz. Before we begin, announcement: any review work, missed classes, or general re-listening to previous classes, don't hesitate to visit the store noahidenations.com and check out the previous lectures. Every class builds upon itself. Review work is always good. Questions, comments, or feedback, I can be reached at rabbikatz@noahidenations.com. This is our 21st installment in the Academy of Shem and Aver. And to go into our general review that we always do, we started off gaining perspective and clarity of Shem and Noah, for the first 14 or 15 or so weeks. And then we moved on to Jethro. And as we stated about Jethro, Jethro is the first Sinai Noahide. And it's fitting that at the Sinai revelation that there would be a Noahide. I think we'd have to ask ourselves, why wouldn't there be a Noahide at the Sinai revelation? Jethro left Sinai to go with his land and his people, but that's exactly what he was doing, was fulfilling the Noahide rule in the world. He was out with his family and his land so that the revelation would come to Moses on Mount Sinai. Thus there would be the foundation of all future Noahide. Namely, that the revelation would come to Moses, and the Noahide then would connect to the fact that to be a proper Noahide with God, out of the love of God, it's to connect from the fact that Moses received the revelation of the 7 laws of the Bnei Noah, and all that comes with those laws. Thus, if Jethro had been at Sinai, it would have been the repair of schism, but that would be eternal schism. You would never have the doctrine Moses was commanded the laws. You would say that Jethro got his, Moses got his, and they inevitably would split, and this would be an eternal schism. Thus the irony is that by schism of Jethro leaving Mount Sinai, that is the gateway, or the bridge, to repair schism. And thus Jethro was present and accounted for. Even though he left before the revelation, he represented the completeness to the Sinai revelation, that there would be the Jewish Torah and commandments given to the Jewish people, and the sons of Noah would have their 7 laws and their connection to the Torah. Thus the entire world would come under the umbrella of Torah. So when we talk about Jethro, the question we have to ask ourselves is, what is the nature of his conversion? We know that he was some kind of a convert. The Rashi, the commentator to the Torah, explains all the time and when Jethro converted. And the Ramban, another Torah commentator, suggests when Jethro converted. We have to ask ourselves, what was the nature of this conversion? So we're going to make a very subtle distinction. And in words of Torah, which are in Hebrew are called Amrei Bina, words of understanding, we can make deductions based on grammar, based on word usage, and based on what was written down in the Torah through the commentaries. If I say the word converted, as opposed to the word conversion, it carries a different weight, different context, different connotation when we say converted and conversion. Somebody that converts to Judaism, you would say by him, he has converted. There's a definite result, destination. Somebody that's a Noahide, he is under the principle conversion, constant condition. The convert to Judaism is performing out of the fear of God, and as it's written by Jethro in his conversion, constant condition of coming to God is predicated out of the love of God. The Vilna Gaon, rabbi of the year 1740, brings to us a very nice imagery of this concept. It says that there's the Torah and there's the mitzvahs, the commandments. The Torah is related to the head, which is the intellectual side to the Torah, and the commandments are related to the body. Now, if you think of your own image of your body and head together, the head is connected to the body by the neck. So when converts to Judaism convert, what they do is they strengthen the body. They're a strict adherent to the laws, 613 laws, predicated on the fear of God. Thus, when the Noahide is in conversion, and when we say conversion, we're talking about Hashem revealing himself on a certain level to the Noahide, levels of truth, that they are geared and steered towards Hashem exclusively. Thus, the neck is connected to the head. They relate to the strengthening to the head or to the Torah. And it's interesting, because the word for throat, garon, can literally be spelled Gimel Resh Vav Nun. Gimel Resh is ger, or convert, and the Vav and the Nun at the end is a constant condition. So what you do when you put the two together in Hebrew, you would say a constant conversion. Thus the Noahide is a constant conversion, whereas the Jew, conversion to Judaism, the convert to Judaism, is converted. He's done. He's reached a point he's happy with, he's done, he's converted. Now, one is the conversion out of the fear of God, and one is the conversion out of the love of God. And the conversion is the way we talk about Jethro. Hashem was so revealed to Jethro. What does Jethro say in the Torah? I saw all that Hashem has done to the Jewish people. Jethro served idols. He was into every religion in the world. He came from the world of falsehood. In Hebrew, this is called sheker. And today, everybody lives in the world of falsehood or sheker. But Jethro was privileged to behold the light of God. That Hashem showed him so much truth, so much clarity and revelation, that Jethro was converted, or in conversion, by God himself. God was so revealed to Jethro that he was steered away from the evil side of the world and brought into the holy side of the world. That's called conversion from love. That God basically graces you to the point that you cling to God. This is Jethro. He was clinging to God. He loved God. This is why in the Torah, in the commentator Rashi, way he comments on Jethro, the Jewish people didn't understand the love of God. They said, you only converted, they thought he converted, because he thought he was going to have land. And when he found out that he wasn't going to have land, he left. But that's a shallow kind of answer. The deeper meaning to that Rashi is that people who converted to Judaism, Jethro thought they would have land. But he who converted out of love was not even expecting land. And they said, you didn't convert out of love, you left. Once you found out that converts to Judaism also don't have land, you're no better. You're no different. So the Jewish people didn't understand the level of conversion out of love. And that's really what Jethro lays down for all of time. The proper conversion out of love. And that's what mandated the Academy of Shem and Aver. The Torah Learning Academy, the Yeshiva of Shem and Aver, was the academy of how to love God. Abraham was called Abraham, my lover. Avraham Oavi. But he was not the first person to be called a lover of God. The first person to love God was Shem. As the Midrash very clearly says, Shem was the first to be called Shem Oavi. Shem, my lover. So Shem was the teacher of how to love God. Jethro, many years later, upon the Sinai revelation, he was that representative. That all through time, since Shem, there were Noahites. The revelation of Sinai revealed the Noahites of the world. Jethro was the appointed leader, so to speak, in his affiliation with Moses, that he would connect the Noahide into the Torah for all of time. So last week what we spoke about, going into Jethro, was, did Jethro convert out of fear to Judaism, or out of love of God to remain a Noahide, to remain a passionate Noahide? And you can read the Torah to get a simple answer. And in that case, Moses sent off Jethro, and they perpetuated the animosity between their previous incarnation of Cain and Abel. Or you can say Jethro was in conversion from love. And this is what predicated him, or forced him to say, Baruch Hashem, blessed or praised is God. And on that level, when Moses sends Jethro off to his family and to his land, then you find a brotherly love that has no equal in the entire Torah. Nowhere do we find the harmony between brothers than Moses and Jethro. Moses has the revelation of Sinai, Jethro as the Noahide component. This would even go back to Shem and Abraham. Abraham representing the Jewish element, and Shem representing the influence, but the Noahide element, and the two that are synonymous. To the point that the Zohar says, who gave to who? Their souls are wrapped up within each other. Shem and Abraham. Moses and Jethro's souls wrapped up in each other. And then we're going to purchase the base of Mikdash, the Holy Temple, on the Temple Mount, from a Noahide. King David buys the Temple Mount from a Noahide. And again you find two souls bound within each other. Who gave to who? Aravna, the Noahide, who had in possession the Holy of Holies, the Temple Mount, to the point that he was called a minister to the Temple Mount. Sar Metzudat Sion. And the Torah itself calls him a king. And David was called a king. If you read the Torah in those verses, it says the king said to the king gave to the king. Who gave to who? Who was the king? The idea is that when David bought the Holy of Holies, the Temple Mount, Zion, which Zion is essentially the foundation stone in the Holy of Holies, Even Shtia, that sealed the relationship that David and Aravna Ravna, the name of the Noahide, it may have looked like a point in time, but that point continues to this day, basically steering and governing the world. And when that transaction is final, and the two souls become two nations bound within each other, maybe that's when the foundation of the third and final temple would come down. When both nations are prepared and governed by the Torah, as brought down by Jethro and Moses, and prepared by Shem and Abraham. So again, last week we talked about Jethro, why we're forced to say he was in conversion to Noahide. As much as it's possible that maybe he did convert to Judaism, why does it make more sense that he was in conversion to Noahide? So that's where we're going to start today. We talked about Aravna, the Noahide with King David. He was called a Ger Toshav, the Noahide who lives in Israel. And another commentary to the Torah changes the words of Rashi. It calls him a Ger Tzedek, a righteous convert, which in today's terminology is used exclusively for conversion to Judaism, or converted to Judaism. So what we learn by that is that today's terminology is not exactly accurate, as there's no precedent for Aravna to have converted to Judaism. What he was in conversion to was Noahidism. And thus the Mitzudas David commentary states he was in fact a Ger Tzedek, a righteous convert. Now when somebody is going to convert to Judaism, how does this work practically? The Noahides are making in preservation the Academy of Shem and Aver, the Torah of the love of God. So when a person wants to go to be converted to Judaism, the Noahide platform really is a rectification. When people are converting to Judaism out of the fear of God, this creates a scenario, not always, that you may have a conversion that goes astray. Say somebody converts for the wrong reason, either selfish reasons, not pure reasons, whatever reason a person would convert to Judaism. This has caused tremendous hardship, not only to Judaism, but it's also a diminishment of Noahide. It's a way of saying that the Noahide is not really for me. It's not anything. So that kind of conversion really is a betrayal of the truth of both camps. To not familiarize with Noahide baselessly is not appropriate. And to run to Judaism because it's some kind of a status or whatever personal reason there is also a limitation. So what we learn from Jethro is that he has both levels present in his Torah teaching of him, that he can equally be this Noahide, he can also be a convert to Judaism. Now we're not bringing down something exclusive here, but Noahide is the manner, the program, that if one wants to love God, the teaching and Torah of Noahide, from Aravna, Jethro, Shem, Noah, through the forefathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, who learned from Shem, the love of God is found in the yeshiva, the academies of Shem and Aver. As again, Shem was called Shem, my lover. Thus once, again, this is not a law. You don't have to become a Noahide before you become converted to Judaism. And if you're a Noahide, you don't have to convert to Judaism. But what we're saying here is, the Noahide Torah, the Noahide yeshiva of Shem and Aver, the Noahide way of loving God is a proper element. And that's what Jethro brought down. From Noahide, if the soul wishes to convert to Judaism, he feels that Noahide is not where he wants to go. The benefit of such is he still brings the love of God into Judaism, which is a big rectification. As it says in Devarim or Deuteronomy, you should love and fear Hashem your God. The fear of God in the Jewish camp is the more active approach. But the completion of the heart is the love of God. So this isn't a matter of levels or statuses. It's that the Noahide Torah of Shem and Aver is the Torah of loving God, how to love God. Shem called Shem my lover. And there's a big difference here between the concepts of love and loving God, to the point God calls you his lover. King David was after the heart of God. King David sought to be David Oavi, David my lover. Shem reached that level, and Abraham reached that level. I don't know if anybody else named a lover of God. And now the factor is of God. To be a lover of God. Most converts to Judaism do it for God. But from Noahide, there's a love of God. And that's the qualitative difference. So Jethro, to explain him as a Noahide or a Noahide who converted to Judaism, he's doing it out of the love of God. Thus, with Jethro's quasi-element of either Jewish or Noahide, you see the whole conduit of how Jethro came from the falsehood of the world, came to the Sinai revelation, where it fits that he became a Noahide, and if you answer it, then he converted to Judaism. He did not lose that love of God. Now the entire world is filled with Noahide, sons of Noah. What does the Rambam say? That the people of the world are forced to take on the laws of Noah in a war. They become a servant. This is very problematic. It's brought to my attention by several Noahides. How do we distinguish between the Noahide that is forced upon him, and he basically becomes in servitude, to another Noahide who does it willingly? Is there a separation in status? Again, you learn this from Jethro. An Eved Kanani, a Canaanite slave, right? There's Canaanites in the land of Israel. They are to undergo circumcision. I believe they are to take a mikvah. And they partake in all the Jewish rituals as a Jew. But he has the status of a servant. So we learn from Jethro is the liberation is to be a proper Noahide as Jethro was. The Ramban states that the Torah commentary, Jethro did 4 things. He changed his name, he did circumcision, took a ritual bath or mikvah, and brought an offering. Thus, from Jethro we learn that not only the things that Noahites cannot do, 7 negative commandments, 7 things not to do. From Jethro you learn what to do. As it says that if you receive the 7 laws from wisdom, that's not being a Noahide. That's what the forced servitude to be a Noahide is. They're doing it not because Moses was commanded at Sinai, but because the intellect says, I better do this. On that level, that's not called being commanded and doing. So Jethro shows how to be the status of being commanded and doing. What does the Torah say? Greater is he who commanded and does than he who just does. To be a servant through a product of war is someone who just does. Going along with it. Sure, I'll do it. This beats anything else. But to be commanded in doing. That's what Jethro brought down. How to be proactive. Things that there is to do. As it was commanded to Moses. What this does is it relives the Sinai revelation. Every Noahide has the opportunity to go back to Sinai, wherever he is, wherever he is, and accept the revelation as Jethro did from Moses on Sinai. There's always an opportunity for every Noahide in the world, which is every son of Noah, the whole world, to relive the Sinai revelation. By doing so, what the Rambam says, this is what a real Ger Tzedek is. This is taking the birthright of what your soul in you is, of which the Rambam calls it Chasidei Umas Ha'olam, the righteous of the world who are bearers of the world to come. Partners in Torah, all the levels we're talking about. Jethro lays down how to make this possible, that you relive the Sinai revelation. Jethro brought that down for all of time. As Jethro did those things, changed his name, circumcision, offering, and ritual bath. Now the name thing is interesting. The Ramban explains by Jethro, all that become acquainted with Judaism call themselves by another name in Israel. It's a very fascinating Ramban. It doesn't mean that you become Jewish. That would be a converted to Judaism. What the Noahide is, he's in a constant conversion. Always coming to God. Always growing in how to love God. It's a relationship with God. It's not Judaism. And it shouldn't have to be portrayed as Judaism. Jethro left to go with his land and to his family. The Jewish people said, stay. Make the world Jewish with us. But that's not what the Torah wants. The Torah doesn't want ethnic unity in the world. It wants more diversity. Jethro wanted to go and spread the love of God. To spread the ways of how to relive the Sinai revelation. So when somebody is in falsehood, they have the ability, as this world is predicated on falsehood. This is called the world of falsehood. That when the Noahide Torah goes to the world, anybody can cling to the Sinai revelation as Jethro did. and become proactive the way Jethro did. They become inheritors of the world to come, as Jethro did. And all these levels that we hear about, the misperception of the Rambam, there becomes a level of Bnei Noah called Gerei Tzadikim, the righteous conversions, righteous convert, which, as we said, we thought it belonged to Judaism. But now we realize it belongs to Noahide even more exclusively. So how do you identify a Noahide as a Ger Tzedek from a Noahide who just does it from his own volition? That's Jethro. The Ramban explains that he can be identified by identifying features. Jethro had 8 names, upon which the Vilna Gaon says everybody has at least 7 names. When Jethro added the letter Vav to his name, he became what this Ramban is talking about. When he is in association with the Jewish people, i.e., it's another way of saying when he's doing his Torah service, then he has a name to be called by. Jethro became the famous Jethro. The Vav was added to his name. Chovav, the lover of Torah. Whatever name he uses to express his love of God. It says when he is called after this name in Israel. So when he's not in the presence of Israel, as Jethro went to his land and his family, he went by his family name. So when he went by his family name, that was when he was with his land and his family. And in Israel, in the presence of Torah and service of God, he had the proactive measures to go by. The name, the ritual bath, and the offering to God. And this is going to be it for today. This is it for today. We have an interruption. Next week we will finish. Next week we'll finish with Jethro and going into Aravna, the Noahide with King David on the Temple Mount. Okay. And sorry for the interruption for today. The final words are Jethro, he was in conversion to God out of the love of God. And this separated him from the rest of the world to essentially become on a personal relationship with God, an elevated relationship with God, a loving relationship with God. From that, is there a conversion to Judaism? It depends on how you learn the verses. But one thing to be sure is that inside Judaism, from Noahide, comes the love of God. And that's what was brought down from the academies of Shem and Aver. That's what Shem gave over to Abraham. That's what Abraham gave over to Sinai. Sinai gave over to Jethro. Jethro gave over to Aravna. Aravna gave over to David. And David, as we saw, pursued what it was to love God. He wanted to be in relationship to God. He wanted to be a lover of God. That's what we get from Noahide. That's what the rest of the world doesn't have this. There's no relationship with God. A forced conversion doesn't come to love of God. They become a technical Noahide. But Jethro brought down the proactive measures. How to proactively pursue God. To take the ritual bath. To be doing something holy. To take on a name that when in association with Torah, it's an intermingling of Torah people. To have an offering to connect to the forefathers where we come from. Circumcision for the males. Something to do for God. Something holy to do for God. Jethro brought the being commanded and doing as opposed to just doing. Okay, 1 second. And that's all for today. And I'll see you guys next week. Thank you.